Greetings and salutations. Welcome to another video. Today we're going to install Linux Mint 22.2. This version of Linux Mint has only been out for a few days, so I figured it would be fun to walk through an install and take a look around, and I'm going to pass along a lot of tips and tricks as we roll through the video and recommend some fun tools to install after you get it up and running. This video is aimed at novice users, but even if you are an intermediate or advanced user, you might get some new pointers and information out of it, so do hang around. The point here is to just have fun and take a look at installing Linux Mint. This is not going to be a strict how-to guide. It's just sort of a how-to install Linux Mint in a virtual machine the way I do it, if that makes sense. If you like the video, give it a like. It helps an awful lot to let YouTube know that people want to see this sort of content, and if you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so because it helps my channel. And if you really found this video to be useful, share it with your pals. I don't trust YouTube to publish this to new people because they don't. So if you share something, it helps quite a bit. Thank you very much. For those of you who saw my last video, you may recall that I had said that I was going to do a video about installing Ubuntu 24.04. And I have made a last-minute change to Linux Mint 22.2 because Ubuntu 24.04 is being very naughty and does not want to install in a virtual machine for some reason. It will not run. I've tried it several times before recording this video that you're seeing now, and so therefore I had to stop and change my mind on what I was going to do. We may get back to that later, we may not. It depends on if I can figure out why Ubuntu refuses to install. Honestly, I recommend Linux Mint over Ubuntu these days anyway, so if you didn't see that last video and you're here, I'm glad you're here. Let's get into it. Couple of things to talk about before we jump into the process, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Some of you boys and girls out there that have been around the block will probably no doubt know a lot of this stuff, but if you're a newbie, I just want to make sure that you understand and everybody's on the same page. Before you get started, give yourself lots of time to do this. It takes time. And sometimes you can do everything right and get all the steps right and find out that you run into an error or it didn't install properly, it doesn't work, and you might have to turn around and do it all over again. Don't let this frustrate you. It's a very common occurrence. Installing an operating system is a very complicated thing, and there's a lot of places where you can have things go wrong. So it's just a matter of anticipating the fact that you may need some extra time to do this. Make sure you have access to another internet-enabled device so you can find help. So if you run into an error that is not anticipated in this video, and you might do that because I can't guarantee what I'm doing on everybody's hardware, you'll be able to get help. Don't put yourself in a situation where it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you've decided to install Linux on your computer, and that's the only way you have to get on the internet, because if it doesn't work and you can't get it to work, you're in big trouble. And I've known people who have done just that. So the best search that you could possibly do to find out how to fix a problem, if you're coming across one, is to search in your favorite search engine, install, name of distribution, number of distribution, and the make and model of your computer. That's all you have to do. If you put that up there, you're going to find somebody else who's done it before and maybe run into the same issue, and they might have some advice on how to fix it. And make sure you have access to a wired connection as well. It's better to do installs from a wired connection if you can. Wi-Fi is okay as long as you're pretty close to the router where the transmitter is and you have a good solid connection. You don't want it switching off. And in some cases you have to install Wi-Fi drivers to get it to work, especially on some older machines. These days that's less common than it was years ago, but if you're trying to recycle an old machine, you may have to install some drivers to get that to work properly. A couple of warnings here. be sure to have all the data that you want to keep backed up from the computer before you start doing this. And when I say backed up, that means that it's on a separate drive, like a thumb drive or a USB hard drive that you can physically unplug from the machine, and it doesn't have anything to do with it when it's unplugged, because we're going to erase the hard drive, and that means everything goes away, and you can't uninstall an OS. I've actually had people say, this didn't work right, can I uninstall it and go back? No, you can't. Once you're done, you're done. The only way to get back to where you were before you started would be to reinstall your computer with the previous OS and reload all the data. So you have been warned. Also, I do not recommend nor do I support dual booting any computer for any reason at any time for any person. If you choose to do so, you are on your own. The reason why I do not recommend dual booting is that it is a rabbit hole that if you're not quite prepared to jump down, you might end up in a situation where you have a computer that doesn't work at all and you do not know how to fix it. So it works for people who understand bootloaders and partitions on hard drives, and they're willing to tinker with it to keep it running. I always get people in the comments whenever I say whenever I say this, I get people in the comments that say, I've dual booted for years and I've never had a problem. Blah, 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 blah. Good. I'm glad it worked that way for you. It doesn't work that way for everybody. And if you're a novice, you don't understand a great deal about computers, it's a bad way to get started. Unfortunately, the Linux installers still offer to install whatever you're installing alongside the current operating system. Don't do it unless you understand how that works. Okay? And a lot of the times the automatic installer gets it wrong anyway and it won't boot. So people who do set up dual boots usually do it manually and very carefully, and we're not going to get into that in this video. Proceed at your own risk no matter what you're going to do, because I guarantee nothing stated in this video will work for everyone on every kind of hardware. Good luck. Enough said. And we have some recommended pieces of software that we are going to install in our virtual machine, and I will show you what they are and what they do when we get to that point. Now that we've gotten through all of that, we can go ahead and create a new virtual machine, and we can install Linux Mint. By the way, those notes you just saw will be in the description for the video, so you can cut and paste the command to install the recommended software or whatever you want to do. Just thought I'd let you know they were there. So we're going to install from a file here in GNOME Boxes, and we're going to go to Downloads, we're going to go to ISO Images, and we want Linux Mint 22. And we're going to put in here a new name. I'm going to call it LM-22, just so I don't get it confused. Can't figure out what the operating system is. That's fine. We're going to just leave that alone. We want 4 gigabytes of memory. So let's go ahead and use that to get up there. That is about the minimum to run Linux Mint. We're going to be installing Linux Mint with the Cinnamon desktop, which is pretty good with memory to begin with, but it's not the lightest installation in the world. They claim that you can run it on computers that have as little as 2 gigabytes of RAM, but I'm going to tell you that would be a very unpleasant experience with the Cinnamon desktop. 4 is recommended. We're going to increase the size of our virtual hard drive to 100 gigabytes. And I guess we're good. Let's go ahead and boot that up. And this is very tiny. We're going to fix that a little bit later here, but you have to put up with it for just a moment. And so we have lots of options here. The first one is the one we want. Okay, so I pressed enter. There it goes. It just took it a second to figure it out. Now this takes a little while to boot from a USB stick, especially if you're using old USB 2. And live environments for Linux distributions are stored in a system called squashfs. It's a file system that is compressed, and it's very slow. And, oh, I must have pressed a key there to show me all of that lovely stuff going up the screen. What was that? I don't know. Hopefully this will work. Here we go. Got a mouse cursor. That's encouraging. And we have a desktop, which appears to be quite small. Let us fix that before we do anything else. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go to Settings. And the first thing that we need to do is go to Displays. Actually, the first thing I need to do is make these fonts bigger because I can't see nothing. And I know you can't see nothing, especially if you're on a lower resolution device. So we make the fonts bigger. That's done. And then come down here and let's find Display. Let's see, it should be right there. Display. And we're going to make this a bigger window. Let's see, what size do we want? Let's do, there we go. Let's do a 16 by 10 window. And that'll work just fine for what we're doing here. We're going to do our install. We'll keep the configuration. Thank you very much. So this is the time when you're going to want to be playing around when the machine is running off the live environment. Of course, we're assuming that you already know how to create bootable media. That is going to change depending on what system you're doing it on, so we're not even going to touch that in this video. Go to linuxmint.com, download an ISO file, and then go look how to burn that onto a USB stick so you can boot the machine. Linux Mint's install file is small enough that you could actually do it from a DVD if you have an older piece of hardware that has a DVD drive in it. If you want to, you can. You can burn it to a DVD and then put the DVD away and come back to it later. It's slow when you do it that way, but it's still possible if you have the hardware. So let's go ahead and get right into the install because we don't have to do anything. But this is where you would hook up your internet if, for instance, if the Wi-Fi drivers were already installed in the Linux kernel and it worked properly, you could do that. So you want to make sure that you have an internet connection to the machine and you're ready to go. So let's click the install there. This takes a few seconds to load. Remember, we are running at squashfs speeds, even though this, well, in this case, this isn't coming off USB anything. It's coming out of a file, so it's as fast as the computer can go. So you can imagine that it's a bit slower when you're on a USB drive. First thing it's going to ask about is your language. We're going to choose English because that's what we speak around here, but you pick whatever works for you. And then here's your keyboard layout. I'm going to do English US. It is defaulted to that. And so I'm good with that. Go forward. And we're going to have it install the codecs. I will install even more codecs once we get the thing booted up here. So we're going to put in all kinds of goodies. This is where you would figure out the partitioning of your hard drive. What I recommend is that you let the system figure it out and just let it do it. There are those out there who insist on having a separate home partition. I'm actually one of those nerds that does that usually. But the truth of the matter is these days you don't need it because in Debian-based systems, they will handle swap space automatically for your computer. Especially Ubuntu creates a swap image file and it figures out how much memory you have. It figures out how much swap you need. It takes care of that. So there's no need to create that. And a separate home partition, the reason why that is done on a spinning drive, this is like an old mechanical hard drive, is to make sure the system is right up at the front of the disk. So what you would do is you would put your operating system at the fastest part of the disk, which is the first right up front, and then you would put your swap space however much that is, and then you would put your personal data in the home directory in another partition. And that way the system is, as it's reading and writing, is going to be jumping back and forth from the system partition to the home partition, and swap is in the middle if it needs it. These days with SSDs, it doesn't matter. SSDs are equally fast from beginning to end of the disk, and we don't have to worry about that. Also, one of the reasons that a separate home partition was important back in those days was usually to upgrade to a new Linux, you would have to reinstall. With a separate home partition, you didn't have to remove all the data from the home partition and then reload it. And you could just tell the system, use the home partition as it is. And you can still do that to this day, which is fine. But the truth is, with a lot of modern Linux, upgrading in place is trivial. It's not that big a deal to move from one version to the next, and there's usually an upgrade path, and you don't have to worry about that. Ubuntu is really good about that, and so is Linux Mint. There's always a way to upgrade in place, and it pretty much works flawlessly. So, no need to mess around with that. So we're just going to let the system figure that out. One of the reasons I'm not going to be showing you how to do that is that for some reason I have discovered that KVM and QEMU, which is the box's base, doesn't like to have a bunch of partitions. It just simply doesn't work well. So we're going to let the system figure that out for us. And we have the time zone now. I'm in the Eastern U.S., so I'll choose Eastern. Now we give it a little bit of information. Put in your name. Just your first and last. I do recommend putting the whole thing in there. We're going to come up with a new name for the computer. This is the host name of the machine. So we're just going to call it LMVM. That's it. I like that username. It's just my first name, and I'm fine with that. I mean, Ubuntu these days and a few other distributions are trying to get real cute and put in Joe C or Joe-Collins or whatever. If you're the only person on the system, or if you're only going to have 2 or 3 accounts, it doesn't matter. So don't worry about that. Passwords. Choose something that is easy to remember and easy to type. It does not have to be the most robust password in the world. This is saying it's a fair password. This is actually not a fair password, but it doesn't really meter it at the when you type it in, so it doesn't matter. Some people think at this point, well, I'm going to put in a very strong password so my system will be very robust and hard to break. It don't matter. If they have access to the computer, they're going to get your stuff. It really doesn't matter. One of the things that I do recommend is to have the system require you to put in your password at login. If you log in automatically, anybody can sit down in front of your machine and get to your stuff and mess with it. And especially if it's a laptop, if it gets stolen, boom, they're right in. And if you have any sensitive information, you're just letting them have it. Down here, it gives you an option to encrypt the home directory. You may want to do that if you want to be super safe, but there are a couple of drawbacks. First of all, that slows the system down. It does make it perform slowly when having to read and write data. The other thing is that if for some reason the operating system ceases to work, which is installed on the computer, and you should boot it from a USB or a DVD, another live environment, you will not have access to that. And so you won't be able to grab data out of that and then put it somewhere else if you should have some sort of a system crash. So I usually don't bother with it. So let's move forward. The system has actually been working in the background as we have been doing this, and it's copying files. And this should take anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour, depending on how fast your hardware is and how fast your internet connection is, because it will be going out to the internet to get things as it rolls along. The wonderful thing about video editing is that all I have to do is push this button, and we're done. So we can go ahead and reboot and do our first full boot of the system. Hopefully everything works. The moment of truth has arrived. Will it boot properly? Only time will tell. Hit enter. This is when you would take out your USB there. So we have our, go ahead and restart that up. See if we get into a desktop. I certainly hope we do. I have no indication whatsoever whether this is working properly. So we shall, oh, we have a Linux Mint logo. This is good. Hopefully we will be at a desktop soon. And we are there. Put in your password. Log in. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, if you don't mind, and I'm going to open up a terminal in the virtual machine, and we are going to install a little piece of software that's going to make life a lot easier. So sudo apt install, and it is called Spice. And we're going to put that in there. I hope I typed that right. I think I did. Here we go. Yes, please. Waiting for headers. I didn't need to say yes, but I did anyway. Used to it asking. Apparently it doesn't do that anymore. I don't know. Did I say yes twice? Maybe. And it is taking a little bit of time for it to figure this out. There we go. Good. Now let's reboot. Hopefully everything is loading properly. Yep. And we are back. Put that in there. Yes. So we should be able to go into full screen mode, and it should automatically resize, which it does. So the first thing that we want to do is to fix these fonts and make it easier for everybody to see, including me. So we will open up settings, and the fonts, just make them big, just scale them up. That's all we're trying to do. That is done. And now we want to, I think that's all we need to do. We don't even need to go into displays or anything like that. So let's take a look at the welcome here for Linux Mint. Talk a little bit about it. We'll go to first steps. And I like the fact that they have the first steps in here, but I don't necessarily like the order in which they make you do the first steps. First thing they talk about is desktop colors, and then setting up system snapshots. Then it's driver manager, then it's update manager. Actually, the very first thing that you want to do when you install Linux Mint or any Linux operating system is to update it. So we're going to open up the update manager. And the first thing that I'm going to do before I install that, actually, this is what we need to do. Go ahead and apply an update to get a new update manager. That's important. We'll take care of that first. There, that reloads. It's going to ask us to set system mirrors. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So what we do is we go to Software Sources under the Edit menu. And this is one of the really cool things about Linux Mint. You can also do this with Ubuntu, is that you can choose a local mirror, which is basically a server that is near you that holds all of the installation files and updates for your operating system. So I am in the state of Virginia, so I'm going to choose James Madison University for my Mint mirrors and apply. That's in Harrisonburg, Virginia. I used to live in Harrisonburg. I was actually just a couple of miles away from James Madison, and what I like to do is, if I can, choose Ubuntu mirrors that are the same as the mirrors that I'm using for Linux Mint. That way there's no way that they can get out of step with each other. So once you do that, you want to reload it. That's fine. That will go out and reload the system. I found out just the other day, I didn't know this, that Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, has mirrors for Ubuntu. And I have lots of Ubuntu systems running around, and I was able to change the mirrors to Old Dominion, which is literally right across the river from me, and it's less than 2, maybe 3 miles away as the crow flies. So that's pretty cool. Alright, so let's go ahead and install all our updates and make sure that they're in the system. I'm going to click refresh again just to be super safe and secure and careful and all that stuff. And we're going to install the updates. I told you about typing the password in. If you're new to Linux, you now see what I'm talking about. Because every time you do anything that's going to change the system, it's going to ask for your password. It's going to make sure that you have administrator privileges so it can be done. So it is downloading the packages. These are what has changed since they released Linux Mint 22.2 just maybe a week, or maybe it's been about a week. I don't know how long it's been out exactly, but not very long indeed. So we have to make sure that we get all this downloaded, and now it's going to install the updates. Shouldn't take very long, there's not much. It is very important to install updates before you do anything else to the system. Extremely important. People get themselves in trouble all the time by setting up a Linux system and then they don't know to do this first, and then they go in and make a bunch of changes, and then the system updates and it breaks them. It happens all the time. So make sure that everything is up to date before you do anything to the system. Now that is done, so we want to close that, and I am going to go ahead and shut this system down. You should always restart after updates. I want to go into preferences for this system, this virtual machine, and I want to give it 3 CPUs. That's plenty. And I want to go ahead and remove the boot media from the machine so it doesn't keep popping up on the desktop. In Linux Mint with the Cinnamon desktop, you do have active desktop, so it shows you when things are mounted, and I actually prefer that over the standard GNOME desktop, which these days doesn't show you anything on the desktop. And unlike Ubuntu, the active desktop in Cinnamon is a true active desktop, and it works the way it used to. Ubuntu, they have made modifications to make it appear as an active desktop, and most of the time it works, but sometimes it doesn't. You know. So here we go. we should be able to full screen Linux Mint. Very good. So we're back to our welcome screen. We have our updates installed. Now we can go about customizing the system and make it do what we want it to do. There are a couple of housekeeping things that I'm going to show you that you should pretty much do right up front. And we'll go ahead and tell that we don't need that anymore, because you can go through it if you want to. And it certainly is a good place to start, but I'm just going to show you directly how to do things. The first thing that we want to do, open up settings here, and let's see, first thing we want to do is to figure out how our desktop works. So I like the desktop to show me a home directory. So we're going to put that up there. And it's already set up to show us mounted devices. That's cool. So you can do that any way you like and make it do whatever you want it to do. What else do we need to look at here? We'll go to Startup Applications. And we're going to look at things that we need at startup. We do not need a Bluetooth applet because there's no Bluetooth on this machine. We're going to leave the print queue agent there. SS key agent is there as well. Support for NVIDIA Prime. If you're not going to use SSH, you don't need that, but you can always turn it back on later. System reports gathers information that you can send back to the Mint developers or into people that will help you. Whether you want that on is up to you. And the update manager we definitely want to load automatically. So that's good. So what is next here? We want to look at the screensaver. And this says it'll come on every 15 minutes and it's going to lock the screen. We're just going to say never. I don't want it to come on because this is a virtual machine, man. We don't need a screensaver. What else can we play with while we're here? Let's go down here. We can set up a firewall. This is a good thing to do on your system, especially if it's a laptop that you're going to be carrying around. You want a good firewall running, and you just turn it on to enable it. And then if you want to set rules for an application that will, like, a server to get into the system, then you can search for them here for individual applications. So I'm going to add, and we're going to set one for SSH. And yes, it says it's a risk. I know that. We're going to go ahead and add that. So I did. Well, I got two of them. I only want one. I clicked it twice. Okay. So that's done. And let's see. We have users. So we can select an avatar. Let's open that up. And we'll click on it here, and you could select a cool image. I'll be a football. That's what they call it everywhere else in the world except for America. In America, we call that a soccer ball. And this is also where you can join groups. Let's see what groups I'm already in. I should be in my own group. I was looking at this earlier and it wasn't. So this is how you set permissions for things. Like if you didn't want to have to use your password at login, you would join this group right here. But we're not going to do that. I do want to be a member of my own group. I think that's kind of important. You can use groups to have different users on the machine, have different permissions and different access to files. Whatever you want to do with that is fine. You can highly customize this panel down here. I'm not going to get into it in the video. So now we want to install some software that I find to be critical. For me, it's very useful. And I'm going to go ahead and grab this command here. We're going to copy it and put it on the clipboard. And because I am running that, let's see if I can paste it in here. Yes. So we'll go ahead and run this, and this will go out and grab all the software we need. You can put individual packages in the Software Center and find it as well. It's going to install some other stuff, so we say, yes, that's fine, let's go. When you get to this screen, if you're doing it from a terminal like I am, use the Tab key to select OK, and then use the arrow key to select yes, because you're agreeing to a EULA. We're downloading Microsoft's fonts, and because we're installing Ubuntu Restricted Extras, which gives you a whole lot of new fonts and codecs and things on the machine that don't ordinarily come preloaded. And if you are going to be interacting with files that were created on like Microsoft Office, this will give those fonts to you, so there won't be any errors in LibreOffice. And the extra codecs are always nice when you're playing back different kinds of media. Now we're getting our fonts. Yep, they still live at SourceForge. Those fonts have been on SourceForge for at least 15, maybe almost 20 years. So those are installed. This is good. So let's go ahead, since we installed all that software. Anytime you do a big install of software, I recommend restarting the machine. You don't necessarily absolutely have to, but it helps. Because in case there are any services that need to be running in the background, this is good. I don't think there are with what we installed, but that's okay. So what did we just install? Well, I'm going to show you. When we get back there, be patient. Linux Mint is not noted for a fast boot time. It never has been. It's just the way they set up the operating system. Even though it's based on Ubuntu, they make several changes to the way the system loads, and it just slows it down a little bit. But once it's up and running, it's always good to go. Wow, that was a giant mouse cursor. Did you see that? That's cool. Go ahead and log in. There we go. We have our desktop, and everything is the way we left it. So what software do we need to take a look at? Well, the first thing that we want to look at is gdebi, because I installed that. Gdebi is a graphic installer for deb package files, .deb, which are common in pretty much every Linux system that is Debian based. And it's somewhat deprecated because usually they'll have the software manager in a system that will do this for you, or you can even do it from a terminal. gdebi is just old school, and I like it. And apparently it does not come by default in Linux Mint anymore. So I found that out because somebody was telling me that they installed Zoom on a Linux Mint machine. The script to install Zoom needs gdebi, so they had to have it. So there it is. It is installed, and it's just real simple. You would just use it to find and install packages that you've downloaded from the internet in deb format, like Google Chrome, for instance, comes in a deb package for Debian-based Linux, so you could use that here. It's a very nice thing to have on the system. So the next thing on my list is, I can just jump over here and check. Let's see, what is the next thing on the list? Okay, yes. Let's look at Midnight Commander. Make this bigger so everybody can see. We can even go one more, I think. It's a little too big. Back off. By the way, I am changing the size of the terminal by using Control and Shift and the plus key to make it bigger, and then just Control and minus to make it smaller. So MC is a very useful terminal-based file manager, which is mouse-driven. So even though it's in a terminal, you can click on things and go there. And it doesn't take much to learn how to use, and it is very useful. If you have a situation where your desktop is not working properly and you need to go find files, this is the quickest way to do it. I use it for search and destroy because after you get used to using it, you find out that you can navigate the whole system very, very quickly, and it will do a lot of great things. And to get out of it, you just press F10 on the keyboard, or you can click it, whatever you want to do. Another thing that we have installed that runs in the terminal is htop, and I have showed this application many, many times in the past on my systems. It is, first of all, it's a real quick system monitor. It'll tell you what the system is doing. It lays all the information out up at the top. So we have 3 cores. It's showing how much CPU usage we have, showing how much memory we're using, and how much swap space we're using. So it's all right there. And then down here is the running processes. And with a little bit of clicking around, you can figure out how to change the priority of running processes, kill things that have crashed, that sort of thing. It's an extremely powerful and very useful program. So I always put it on my systems. Let's see what else we have here. So, Ubuntu Restricted Extras. And yes, you can install this from the Software Center very easily. It will ask you that same question about the EULA, and all you need to do is check a box. This is all the extra stuff that you need. And finally, the last thing I installed, I feel like that this is the most important package. Somewhere along the way, Debian or Ubuntu, somebody decided that they were going to drop Cal as a pre-installed package. What is Cal? It's a calendar, right? It's a terminal-based calendar, and it is so handy to have installed on your system because all you have to do is open a terminal and type in Cal, and then you get it. So apparently I left that on off the end of that. Sudo apt install in Cal. Okay. So now I can type in Cal and I get a calendar. And there's all kinds of things you can get that to do. You can it'll show you the whole year, and there's different things that you can do with that. It's a very cool little application. Now let me go back here and just double check that my command is right, because for some reason that did not install. Well, that's easy to check. Just go back up here and see what the command I put in was. I didn't select it. Okay, that's fine. No big deal. Wanted to make sure that when I copied and pasted that in the description that it was working properly. So now we have a fully functional Linux Mint system that you can go play with and do whatever you want to. I will make one suggestion before we wrap up. If you are somebody who is going to be wanting to write your own scripts and write your own programs, then I suggest that you create a bin directory in your home directory. And we can do that quite easily graphically here with Nemo, so we're going to open that up. Love me some Nemo. It's my favorite file manager ever. And we just want to create a new folder. Folder and directory are interchangeable. Usually you call it a directory when you're working in a terminal. It's a folder when you're in a graphic environment. I created a little thing there called bin. And the next time this system boots up, what it's going to do is it's going to put that at the front. So I'll show you that. Like right now, if we want to look at the path, which should be, this is, by the way, how the system finds things that it executes, like programs on the system. It knows where to look. So I want to look at the path. Let's go ahead and clear that. And make Control L clears, by the way. Let's go ahead and do that again. So you see that the first place that it's looking for software is user local bin. Well, this is where you would put software that you would compile yourself or write scripts, things like that, if you wanted everybody on the system to use it. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. So what I'm going to do is we're going to log out of the system. We're going to go to the login screen. Oh, look, it went full screen. That's nice. Log back in. I'm going to run path here once again. And you'll see now the first place it looks for new software is in our local bin directory. And so you could be working on something, you could be changing something or modifying it that's in one of these other locations. The system won't run it. It'll run your local version first. This is very powerful, and it lets you do a lot of interesting programming and scripting things. It's a good thing to know. So finally, the last thing that we want to look at on our Linux Mint system is time shift. I saved this for the last because you really want to set this up once you are done getting everything the way you want it. You've done all your updates, and we're going to go ahead and open up time shift. It's one of this, and Linux Mint integrates this into the operating system, which is wonderful. Ubuntu and other systems, you have to go grab it. So when we first run it, it's going to tell us that we're using rsync because we can't choose BTRFS. That's called ButterFS or BetterFS. It's a file system for your computer. We're using good old ext4, which, by the way, is my favorite file system for desktop Linux. I don't like using anything else. ext4 is super robust at this point and damn near bulletproof, and very good on system resources, and it's a performer as well, so that's why I stick with it. I know other operating systems have switched over to using like ButterFS for the system, and then they'll create another home directory with XFS. That's what Red Hat and other RPM Linux does. I'm not a big fan of that. So we only have one place to store our backup, so it's already chosen that. If we had more drives on the system with Linux native file systems, it might offer to put them there. We really want this in the same file system as the root, the actual system itself, because it'll make it a lot faster to do what we need to do. Now, we can set up all kinds of snapshot schemes. What I find works best for me is to have 3 dailies and 2 weeklies. So what this does is that will mean that after this has been running for a while, we'll be able to roll this machine back at the drop of a hat to what it was like 2 weeks ago. Okay? So let's go to next. This excludes your home directory and the root user's home directory, which is simply known as root. What this means is that it's not going to be creating backups or copies of files that are in the home directory. This is a good thing because if you roll back the system, you may not want it to roll back documents and things that are in there. This is not a good backup strategy to turn this on and go, oh, I'm backing everything up. If you had a system that had very little data on it in the home directory, like it was just some sort of server or whatever, you might want to go ahead and turn this on, because it will allow you to roll back to older versions of things. But if you have any real data on the system, like videos and pictures and stuff that most people have on their systems, then I wouldn't do this, because you could potentially have 5 copies of the same file and it sucks up a lot of drive space. There are better ways to back up your personal data. So let's go ahead and finish that, and it says that it's ready to go. So the way this works, once it is up and running, it says it's got 487.9 gigabytes to work with. I think I made a larger drive than I thought I was. Okay, I thought I put 100 in there. I must have pushed another button and didn't see that, gang. Did you notice that? I didn't. Anyway, it doesn't matter at this point. So once this is up and running, if the machine is running, you're off doing something else, at the top of the hour, it's going to check to see if it needs to create a snapshot by the schedule. If it does, it'll do it. So we have it where it's going to do it once per day, and when it comes time for it to do a daily snapshot, it'll do it. As long as the system is up, it'll wait for the next hour to do it. This is great because you don't have to worry about having the machine up to do a backup. It all happens in the background. When you first do it, you can create your own snapshot manually. I usually don't bother with this because manual snapshots don't roll. They're kind of stuck there forever. You have to go get them. But what I would like to do is to show you how this works. We're going to create a snapshot, and might take a little while because the first time that you do a snapshot of any kind, it makes a copy of the entire system into another directory. And it doesn't know how long this is going to take. Shouldn't be terribly, terribly long. But what we can do is I can jump over here very quickly. Actually, best way to do this would be to put this in a window, jump out by clicking the desktop, which is what I just did, and then I can pause the screen recorder so you guys don't have to wait through this entire process. That took about 5 minutes to make the entire snapshot, but I'm going to show you something here. The next time we create one, I'm going to do 2 manual created snapshots. It will not take this long at all because now it has made its copies, and as you can see, it's already mostly done. So what do you do with these snapshots when you have them on the system like this? Well, you can use them to roll back to any point you like. So let's say that you made a mistake and installed the wrong video drivers and now it doesn't work anymore. And you find yourself where you need to roll back. Well, there's a couple of ways to do that. We can choose a snapshot from here and then click Restore, which is what we're going to do in just a moment to show you how that works. But you can also go to a terminal. Let me go ahead and close this because it will complain if I try and do time shift from a terminal. So in the terminal, time shift, and you have to run this with root privileges. Will show you the snapshots available, and if I just put in time shift, it should show me that you can see I can use restore and put in it'll ask me to choose a snapshot, and then I just tell it, okay, roll back to what that was. So it's all possible from the terminal. I find using the delete all command to be a good thing every now and again from the terminal for this particular application because when it takes a snapshot, it really doesn't copy the files again. What it does is it creates a link to files that haven't changed, and files that have changed, it will copy a new one. And so therefore, when you get several snapshots, you have basically a giant link farm. It's a bunch of symbolic links. And so it's a good idea every now and again to just wipe that out and start over, just so everything gets rewritten from scratch. That's what I find. So let's say that we have done something to this machine that is bad. So let's go and do something to it. Let's go and we're going to take Firefox off the machine. We're not going to do it with the word prudge, though. We'll do it with purge. Purge means, by the way, that when you do a uninstall, it takes everything with it. Okay, did I get that right? Yes. Nope, I did not. I got it right. So we're going to take Firefox off the machine. And I should, when I open up the menu, see that we no longer have the icon for Firefox because it's gone. And the menu has figured out that it's not there. So what we're going to do is I go, oops, that was a mistake. Gee, I don't know quite how to fix that. I don't have a great deal of time. Let me use the timeshift utility and we will roll back. Thank goodness it is here. So we will choose the first snapshot on the list, and I'm going to tell it to restore. And just usually accepting the defaults is just fine. Go. It's going to figure out what's changed, and it's going to prompt us to go ahead and do this. All right, that's what's changed since the last time that we did the snapshot. Next. And we're going to do it next. Now it's restoring all of the files to the main system from the backups. That's done. By the way, this particular tool has saved my butt so many times on machines that I support for other people, because then I just tell them, hey, just do this, because it's super easy to pick a snapshot and say, was it working yesterday? Oh, it was. Okay, let's pick yesterday's snapshot. Boom, restore. It's an easy out if you're administering a lot of machines. Believe me. So when we come up here, when we come back to where we were, as soon as it loads, we should have Firefox back on the system. Well, as a matter of fact, I know we do. So, all right. There it is. So we were able to restore back to where we needed to be. And that's it. So I hope this video is helpful to you. Have fun with Linux Mint. This is a wonderful distribution of Linux if you're just starting out. It is what I recommend to just about everybody. This is a great place to begin. Linux Mint is really good about giving you a good selection of software to get started with and having everything all laid out for you. And it's extremely stable and it helps you along the way. There's a great community around it. Can't say more good stuff about Linux Mint because then we would just talk forever. It's a wonderful distribution of Linux. Not perfect, nothing is, but Linux Mint is great, especially for people who are just starting out. And I have used it as my main distribution off and on for I don't know how many years. So I kind of alternate back and forth between Ubuntu and Linux Mint. And the other one, of course, is Linux Mint Debian Edition, which is something I like a great deal. Thank you for watching the video. If you have any comments or suggestions, put them in the comment spaces down below. That's what they're there for. I'd love to hear from you. And the last several videos that we have posted have been because people have suggested them. So that is super cool. Thank you very much. We're going to do it again soon.